I've been preparing for this crisis for a long time. In fact, a lot of people were making fun of me because I've been preparing for so long, because they think that what I'm preparing for is never going to happen. Well, it's going to happen. You know, the problem is the Fed's been operating its monetary policy while looking in the rearview mirror because they keep creating inflation, right? Printing money, quantitative easing, whatever you want to call it, and they keep printing more and more money. And they look in the rearview mirror and they look at the CPI, and as long as it's below 2% or some version of it is below 2%, they think it's okay to keep printing money. Meanwhile, they're ignoring the road ahead. They keep looking in the rearview mirror at these CPI numbers, and they kept, printing money and inflating asset bubbles and distorting the economy and leading to these debt bubbles and letting the government get bigger and bigger and bigger, spending more and more borrowed money. And then all of a sudden they look in the windshield and they're staring at these big CPI increases, and their initial reaction is, oh, don't worry about it. It's nothing. And then it's transitory, it'll go away. And now they've got this huge problem, which has been inevitable for a decade. In fact, back in 2009, when the Fed first made the mistake of going down this road of quantitative easing and 0% interest rates, I predicted exactly the predicament that they're now going into, because they have this massive inflation problem. They can't do anything about it. They're talking about tightening up on policy, but what they're talking about doing is going from very loose policy to slightly less loose policy. They're not talking about tight money, which is what they would actually need to put out this inflation fire. But by tightening up a little bit, they're going to prick the bubbles, or they've already pricked the bubble, and you're seeing all these risk assets imploding right now in price. The economy is already rolling over into recession just because the Fed is supplying less monetary heroin than they were. But the fact that they're still supplying some means that the inflation problem is going to keep getting worse. So this is the Fed's worst nightmare. It's stagflation. And the question is, what are they going to do? Are they going to keep tightening up policy and push the economy into another financial crisis, not just a recession? Or are they going to reverse course, go back, reverse any rate hikes, expand quantitative easing, and just make the inflation problem much worse?
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now
7% is the number that you get when you use their rigged methodology for calculating consumer prices. And they often compare the inflation today to the 1970s to try to make it appear like it's not that bad. Oh yeah, it's 7%, but it's nothing like the 1970s. Well, it's actually worse than the 1970s. If you used the same CPI that was used to measure prices in the 1970s, and if you use that identical CPI today, last year was actually worse than any year during the decade of the 1970s. It was about 15%. And the bad news is 2022 is going to be even worse than 2021 because a lot of companies held back on price increases because they thought it was all transitory. Well, now that they realize that's not the case, you have a lot of companies that are rushing to make up for lost ground, and they're announcing major price hikes here in January. They're probably going to do more later in the year. Look at the price of oil. It's already exploding. It's up about 20% in the last few weeks. We're at a new high for the year. We're at $85 a barrel. I think we're headed over 100 this year, maybe closer to 150. I think by next year we'll be above 150 in the price of oil. It's not just oil. It's all sorts of energy, but it's agriculture, it's industrial materials. The government is trying to blame it on a supply shortage. It's not a shortage of supply. It's a surplus of money. It's all the money printing that is creating the problem. Had the Fed done the right thing after COVID and contracted money supply, then we wouldn't see these big price increases. Maybe there would have been a reduction in supply, but there would have been an offsetting reduction in demand. Instead, we reduced supply because everybody was staying at home instead of working, but we increased demand because we gave all the people who were staying at home more money to spend than what they used to earn when they actually went to work. So it was the worst of all policy mistakes. We threw gasoline on the inflation fire. And now we're dealing with the consequences, and it's just getting started. My best investment last year was my house and my condo here in Puerto Rico. I mean, people don't even believe me when I say this, but real estate has basically gone up 3 to 5x in the last year. The problem is they're going to raise rates enough to crush the economy, but not enough to slow inflation.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.